it's all right. We're live. So, welcome in, everybody, to our another edition of the Monday Night Recap Show for Tristatefootball.com. I am I am Daniel Kuhn, and I am here with my co-host Jacob Berkemeier, and we are going to talk about everything that happened during week. I believe it was 5, correct? Week 5.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was, and
All right.
we're gonna
Good.
try to get through this
I had
quick as well,
that.
so
I
you
had
guys
that.
can watch the Bengals.
I had that right. I was a little confused when I was making the graphics earlier about whether it was week 5 or week 4, but I'm apparently correct. So that's all good. So this is the first time we've done this live. Every other time we've done it has been pre-recorded. And the nice thing about tonight, as Jacob already mentioned, is it's probably not going to take an hour to do this again, like we did like it has been the last 2 weeks, because we both want to watch the Bengals play. But nonetheless, we are going to talk about the games from this past weekend, and I will throw it over to Jacob to start it with probably the biggest game of the weekend by far. And he was there in person, so he's going to give you a nice recap of what happened in the Moeller St. X game.
Absolutely, awesome atmosphere there, packed house at St. X, and Moeller ended up coming away with victory 45-37. Now at the start of this game, I was a little worried it was going to end up a blowout because the start of the game was crazy. Chase Herbstreit, 80-yard touchdown, first play. And then Moeller went on to score 28 unanswered in the first quarter. And I was a little worried, but then St. X came storming back in the second with 17 points, outscored them 17-7 in the second. And then it was a battle all the way down. St. X had it with about 5 minutes left. I think they got the ball with 3 minutes left and had a chance to, there's that Herbstreit run. Really proven he's a dual threat quarterback this year. He had 14 carries for 172 yards and 1 touchdown. So even taking away that one rush for 80 yards and a touchdown, he still had a really efficient day on the ground. So Chase has been playing well. But really, I mean, Matt Ponitowski this week was incredible. 18 for 25, 321 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he also broke Moeller's passing touchdown and passing yards record in a career, and Matt is only a junior. So a lot of stuff to build upon for him, but an absolutely amazing game to be at. I was really hoping X would score and get the 2-point just to force overtime and see some more football. But, I mean, incredible game all around. Jovan Love had 6 catches, 74 yards, 2 touchdowns. Matthew Fogler had 3 catches for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. I felt like he was really big in just giving Ponitowski a big receiving threat. He's about 6'3", 6'4", and he was just making plays. Only 3 catches, but going for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He made the most of them. And then Cam Taylor-Britt from the Bengals also made an appearance at that game to watch Cam Taylor on St. X. And Cam Taylor also showed out and had 1 catch for 45 yards and a touchdown. So, again, probably one of the best games we'll see this year in high school football. According to our Blitz 5 top 25 from last week, that was the number 1 team, Moeller, versus the number 4 team, St. X. And, man, did they not let us down. That was a phenomenal game from them. And got to tip your hat to Moeller. They're showing why we have them ranked as the best team in the city. They've been that team all year. And if Matt Ponitowski's playing that way, they're going to be extremely hard to beat as the season goes on.
Always a great game. I took part in a few of those myself, from the sidelines nonetheless, but still always an incredible atmosphere no matter where it's played. Always, extremely crazy and ruckus when it's at St. X. And I wasn't there to see the game, but I did get onto ESPN or ESPX or whatever the St. X calls their live streams. I did hop on that at the beginning, and I saw the run from Herbstreit, which I can confirm he has been an impressively good dual threat quarterback this year. He had some nice runs when I was covering them against Centerville a couple weeks ago. earlier in the season. And then I did also hear the broadcast mention that Moeller was actually without their starting running back. I guess their
Yes,
normal
they
one.
were. And their backup, I thought, played great too. He was
He had the
running
flow,
super hard the whole game. Yeah, he had the nice little, locks going down, and it was
ponytail.
awesome. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he was wearing a number in the 40s too. So, just old school,
Heck
run it
yeah.
down your throat running back. So,
Nothing wrong with that. So
no.
I'll flip it back to myself. And speaking of running it down the throat, I will throw up. We don't have a video clip for this because it's East Central, but I will throw up if I can get the right file up. Come on, Danny. I will throw up the article that I wrote just so there is a little bit of something on the screen about this game. So we're going to talk about East Central and Batesville. Obviously, East Central, a powerhouse in the southeastern, wherever whatever that would be considered. That area of Indiana, in our area of Tri-State football, they're a powerhouse down there. They had a little bit of a rough stretch to start their season, losing a couple games, including to the aforementioned Moeller. But for the past few weeks, they've been ripping off wins. And I will say one of the big things about that, and the big key to the win they had on Friday night over Batesville 24-13, is this sophomore running back that East Central has. The Trojans are definitely putting an emphasis on their rising star. Ryan, I think his last name's how to pronounce it is Mings, something like that. I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. Minges. But they keep calling him engine number 9, and it makes sense. He had a 111-yard performance on just 14 carries in the win. He had, I think, only one touchdown, but I mean, 111 yards on 14 carries is a pretty impressive clip. And their quarterback, Nolan Maple, the junior, he's been consistent all season. Another consistent night, 334 yards through the air, 8 completions. He was able to connect pretty often with Elijah Selhorst, his junior receiver. He only had 3 receptions, but when you're racking up 82 yards on the 3 receptions, you're probably a pretty viable, threat for the defense. And this game, I think at the end of the day, combining what Mingus, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, was able to do. It seems like East Central is their calling card this season, has been dominating in the trenches. I mean, they racked up a total of 3 sacks on Batesville. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but at this level, 3 sacks is a pretty decent clip. They're able to run the ball really effectively. And when you're running the ball effectively, you can really open up your passing game. And if Nolan Maple is able to find, guys like Elijah Selhorst as consistent and as, successfully as he has, and I think East Central is going to have another great season, down there in Indiana. I mean, like I said at the beginning of this, when I talked about it, East Central, I think won. Greg Shoemaker would be the one to ask about this, but they won some crazy, like 22 straight regular season games.
Yeah, something.
And they finally lost, and one of those losses was to Moeller, and they've bounced back in a big way. I mean, and when you're looking at it from perspective of, hey, we had such a great run and we lost it this year, you can really, that could be a death sentence, right, to your season. But they've come back and they're still firing on all cylinders. I mean, their biggest competition, I believe, in their conference is Lawrenceburg, and they easily handled Lawrenceburg week 1. They won with a big margin. So, to come back from those 2 losses that they had and to really bounce back and have the season they've had, to this point, they're looking really strong for the rest of the season. And a team, obviously, to watch for in the Indiana State playoffs. And that is, a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
for them to, they're consistently, you know what I mean, in the conversation.
I mean, they have a lot of hardware over there, and they've been doing their thing for a while now, and they've always been a physical team and trying to run it down your throat. And it's cool to hear that they have a sophomore that's making some noise there. Engine number 9 got a little nickname on him too. So
that was in the press release that Greg Shoemaker sent me. So I guess it must be official. It must be what they're calling him over there.
Yeah. So
if it's in the press release,
bright future for him if he's already doing that now. So I think you also have to play the best if you want to be the best. And playing Moeller, I mean, that gave them an early test, and at the start of the year. So when they get to playoff time, they're ready for that. They've seen really good teams. So I think they just have to keep doing what they're doing. You run the ball, you control time of possession. That definitely is a big thing as the season goes on. I've been talking about that for a couple weeks. So I think we're finally over the hot weather. So got some rain
One would hope.
today.
One would hope.
We'll see what'll happen as these Friday nights kind of go down. If there's going to be some rain or if it's going to be some cold weather where throwing is going to get affected at all, the run game's can be super important. So
Yeah, I will say this about the weather. It rained today and it's cooler outside, so the AC in my apartment hasn't kicked on, and it is quite steamy in this room. I will admit to you guys right now, a little warm. But anywho, enough about the temperature in my my dwelling, my place of living. I'll kick it back to Jacob, and he's going to talk about Wyoming and Taylor.
Yeah, so this was one of the games we previewed last week as something to watch. 2 3-0 teams playing each other. They were at Taylor, and tell you one thing, Aaron McFarland just keeps doing his thing. 3-star at Taylor, junior. He had 10 receptions for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. So talk about 7-Eleven guy that's always open. You're getting lion's share of the targets there. But in this game, Wyoming ended up coming out on top, and it was close the whole way, back and forth, basically. So, 35-26, close game between two. Wyoming's program has always been very good. They've won multiple state championships. They had Prater back during my day, but enough about that. Joel Hancock for Wyoming had 36 rushing attempts. So I want to just highlight that before I even get to the yardage or touchdowns. Running the ball 36 times is hard. That wears on your body, and he went for 36 for 194 and 3 touchdowns. So also added a catch for 16 yards. So I would say he's probably the MVP of that game for Wyoming. Absolutely controlling the game there. You just demoralize a defense when you run 36 times. They ran the ball as a team 41 times. So you're just wearing the defense down doing that. It's a great matchup in the Cincinnati Hills League. Standings wise, Wyoming ends up moving to 2-0 in conference play and 5-0 overall. So Wyoming, I definitely think they were an honorable mention on our top 25 last week. I definitely think they deserve a spot in the top 25, even being in a lower division to some of these other teams. Wyoming year in and year out, they're a great program, got a great coach, and right now they're sitting at a point differential of 100. So they've been playing some pretty good football, and Taylor is definitely no slouch of a school. They have some great players as well. So it was an exciting matchup over there, and definitely curious to see how the rest of the season shakes out for both of those teams.
You've covered that perfectly, because I have one thing that I will say, to add on to Jacob's comments. 36 carries. He's 36, right? Making sure I get that right. 36.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I don't even know if you see many guys in the college and pros get that many carries in a game. So hats off to that kid. 36 carries, even to the point where you're able to be consistently, gaining yards all night.
Well, and also, I just actually clicked on Joel Hancock's his season stats, and so far he is averaging 199 rushing yards per game. So against Ross week 1, 205, Monroe 106, Bethel Tate 259, Madeira 231, and Taylor 194. So Taylor had one of the better defensive performances against Joel Hancock, but
which is crazy to say, right?
This guy has been an absolute monster this year. So I definitely need to keep eyes on him. Playing both ways a little bit. It's recorded some defensive stats, especially against Taylor, had 6 tackles.
Wow.
So, yeah, you're just talking about a gamer right there. Got to play both ways and getting 36 carries. So, good for Wyoming there, getting a win, staying undefeated, 5-0. So I guess I'm going to be kicking it back to Daniel here.
Yeah, so earlier we talked a little bit about Indiana, and now I'm actually going to go back up up the road, we're gonna go to Dayton, and that's I'm trying to cover all of our bases here. We talk a lot about Cincinnati, but we don't give Dayton and we talk a lot about Kentucky too. And don't get me started on Simon Kenton, but we talk a lot about Kentucky too, but we don't talk a lot about Indiana and Dayton. So I wanted to cover Dayton and as well today. And one of the games I did a recap article on was Xenia and Butler, and this was a battle of the undefeateds. Two teams within their conference with the same record, so a lot on the line for this one. And if you're looking at it from a statistic standpoint going into the game on paper, Butler definitely seemed like they have the upper hand. Just an overall more consistent offense than Xenia's. And to start the game, it kind of seemed like it was going to be going that way. Butler got up pretty early with a quick touchdown in the first quarter. But then kind of Xenia started running back. And the theme of the night, apparently, and the theme of week 5, and at least of what we're talking about is running the ball has been a key to success for a lot of these teams, because Xenia did the same thing to Butler. Xenia just went everything ran through their junior running back, Deontay White. He ended up with, let me see if I have that on here. Well, I don't have that on here, so please excuse me. But he had, I think, he scored 22 out of their 25 points. I do know that.
Wow.
Out of the 25 points that Xenia needed to win this game, that 22 came from Deontay White, and he's a two-way player as well. And when you have somebody that's just firing on all cylinders like that, I mean, that's a lot of points, scored by one single person.
Yeah.
Then you're in good shape. And obviously Butler, like I mentioned, has a pretty good offense this year. So you need your defense to stand up, step up. And they did. They ended up getting 2 critical turnovers and setting up setting their offense up in that field position to where they could give the ball in the hands of Deontay White, and he could just take it from there. And that's, why they end up winning this game, I think. The Aviators, I think, had – so let me rephrase that. Think is not the right word. I keep saying think, and I don't know why people – I apologize. Butler had an interception of Xenia, and 2 plays later, Xenia got the ball back. Like, ball don't lie.
Yeah, that's brutal.
It's Xenia's night. They got a fumble on the second play after the interception. Immediately took that and turned it into a touchdown. Some things of note. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. So this game actually ended up coming down to the wire, and it was in the fourth quarter. Early in the fourth quarter, but still pretty close to the end of the game. And I believe Butler ended up climbing back into this game and putting themselves in a position to where they could end up coming out of there with a win. And it just was all Deontay White again. They called his number, and he resoundingly answered. He ended up taking it 49 yards to the house, put the game on ice, sent Butler packing. Xenia ends up staying undefeated in both overall record and conference play, because this was a conference game. So now they have a leg up on the rest of their conference, and you might pull the standings up here in a few minutes when we talk about the standings. But I believe there's one other team that's undefeated, but like they've got a pretty sizable advantage, at least over a team that has had a.
Let me find them. It's
okay.
There's a lot of conferences, but I'll get to them.
Yeah, but that's a huge win for Xenia, who I feel like is one of those programs that I always hear about. And I always, if somebody asks me, think about Dayton football, I think Xenia is one of the teams that pops into my head. And I went back and I looked after I wrote the article about this game, and they haven't had the success that you quite think they would over the last, handful of years. But this is, putting them in the right direction.
Yeah.
For the rest of their season. So big win for Xenia to get the win over Butler.
Well, I think especially having a game changer like that, man, you just get them the ball.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's kind of what Xenia did all night long. It's just
get
their guy the ball that that can make plays. And I mean, you see that at all levels of college football, NFL. You got a guy that can just make people miss and make explosive plays happen. You got to find ways to get them the ball. So
absolutely. So I do have this pulled up so I can kind of elaborate and finish off what I was talking about. So Xenia goes into their next contest undefeated in both conference and overall play. They'll host Fairborn, who sits at 2-3 and 1-3 overall. or 2-3 overall, and 1-3 in conference. But meanwhile, so they have a decent matchup for them, next weekend. But meanwhile, Butler has a really tall task. They're going to play one of the other undefeated teams in this. I think they're in the same conference. I have to double check. But Tippecanoe is also undefeated, 5-0 overall, 4-0 in conference. So that's a big game coming up there next weekend in Dayton as well.
Yeah, definitely. So,
all right,
are we moving on next segment?
Yeah, you want to talk about conferences, or do you want to do?
Yeah, we can do. I'll run through the conferences real quick. See what we got here. So let me get my screen shared. Okay. So yeah, here we go. So we'll start off with one of the games I talked about this week, which was the Wyoming and Taylor game. So starting off in the Cincinnati Hills League. So you see on the scoreboard here, Reading gets a 14-12 win over Madeira. Indian Hill 42-7 over Deer Park. Marymount 16-0 against Finneytown, and Wyoming 35-26 against Taylor. So you had a couple more defensive battles in this one with Reading and Madeira, and Marymount Finneytown. Total not many points scored in those games, and then Indian Hill and Wyoming and Taylor were putting up the points. So you can kind of see here just Wyoming, Indian Hill, Reading all 2-0. So Reading getting that 14-12 win over Madeira is huge.
Look at Indian Hill's point differential in league games. 90-7.
Yeah. So let's see. So Indian Hill in league play so far has played Marymount and Deer Park. So see how that point differential holds up when they get to, playing Taylor and also Wyoming. I think those three teams are kind of at the top, but Reading's got a chance to prove themselves too. They're 3-2 tied with Taylor. So definitely going to be some battles going on, but yeah, Wyoming's 5-0, staying at the top of that 2-0 in conference play and 5-0 overall. So Wyoming's looking like the best team in that conference so far. So then to the GCL South, Elder picking up a huge win over St. X Louisville. Adam Ray hits a game-winning field goal for the Panthers. Huge win for them, and just, more defensive football for the Panthers here. I mean, they have only allowed, 64 points, which isn't too bad considering the opponents they've played, and they haven't gotten into conference play. Moeller and St. X was kind of the first conference game in this, but we'll have to see. LaSalle putting the beat down on Withrow too, so good win for LaSalle. It's going to be a super fun conference once they're all playing each other. And
LaSalle's undefeated.
Yeah.
Still.
Only undefeated team in the conference. So, I mean, we'll have to see how LaSalle holds up as they get into playing Elder, St. X, and Moeller. I mean, St. X Moeller was a great game. So you got to imagine a lot of these matchups between these schools are also going to be great games, as they always are. So, GCL South. Yeah, I mean, that's your comfort zone, man. That's the AFC North right there.
Right. I'm curious. I'll add one thing before I can you can move on to the next conference. Yeah. So the one thing I will notice looking at the stats up here on the screen and the records is the point differential, but for overall, because the league doesn't really matter, they only played one game, but overall the point differential for Moeller and St. X versus LaSalle and Elder, it's like four teams and two of them play one way and the other two play another way, only giving up 50 and 64 points to this point of the season. Those are two really good defensive teams, and when they match up against high flying offenses like Moeller and St. X, it should be fun to watch.
Right. What's gonna is the unstoppable force or the immovable object?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, it's an exciting conference and always have good teams coming out of it. So we know what we're getting with the GCL South. So then we'll move on to the MVC, which still hasn't had any conference play happen yet, but you have CHCA in the Scarlet side of the standings at 4-1. Sitting in a pretty good spot considering Purcell and Roger Bacon are their competition at 2 and 3. So once they get into conference play, have to see how they do. But as of right now, looking like the top team in that side of the standings. And then on the gray side, New Miami and St. Bernard Elmwood Place, Cincinnati Country Day all look like they're going to be battling once we get into conference play in this. So not much to talk about here. With this, I mean, CHCA beating Gamble Montessori 68-0. It's a pretty big blowout.
Still not the biggest blowout of the weekend.
Yeah, it is not.
We'll talk
Aiken
about that in a
43, Summit Country Day 0. So, like I said, not a ton going on in this conference yet. Haven't gotten into games, so we'll have to see how that goes. But then we're going to the GCL co-ed. So Carroll and McNick are both sitting at 4-1 with Baden and CJ at 3-2. So still no conference games with this conference either. So, but you got to think McNick's been playing pretty good football all year. So, I mean, they beat Purcell 38-8. I mean, I would think we'll have to see who takes over between Carroll and McNick right now. Let me check to see if they're going to get into conference play next week. Yeah, so Alter plays Carroll, McNick playing CJ, and Baden at Fenwick. So
I will say Baden played Hughes over the weekend, and I covered that game as well. And Baden's defense, seems like they're pretty stout.
Yeah, let me go back to see what 53 points allowed. So your eyes weren't lying to you. They definitely are a good defensive squad. But then McNick, I mean, 146-37, outscoring their opponents by 100 this year. So McNick's definitely looking on a 4-game win streak going into conference play. See if CJ can put a stop to that, or if McNick's just going to keep on rolling.
Rockets are ready for liftoff.
Yeah. And then, so moving on to the GMC, pretty good week in the GMC for the top schools. I mean, Princeton's still sitting at 4-0, and I mean, they have huge wins over East and West. So Princeton's sitting in a really good spot as long as they take care of business down the rest of the year. But I mean, look at some of these scores. West 51-7 on Middletown. So much for us. I was saying last week, I'm wondering if Middletown was legit or not, and here was their test. And West definitely showed out who the top dogs are right now. And the East, I mean, 59-17 against Fairfield. Princeton 30-7 against Mason. Hamilton and Sycamore getting the wins over Oak Hills and Coleraine.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, definitely this conference is a little top heavy. You got Princeton, West, and East. And after that, it's kind of, I think as the weeks go on, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the conference shakes out. I mean, Coleraine, I know, is really missing Bolden right now.
Imagine saying 5 years ago that Sycamore was going to beat Coleraine.
Yeah.
Be pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, Oak Hills last week putting up like 40-7, I think, or something like that. So definitely Colerane's missing Bolden right now, especially seeing the success West has had. But I mean, definitely Mason being 1-3 surprises me. Usually Mason's a pretty solid school. So I'm really curious how the rest of this will shake out. I think Princeton's going to end up winning the conference here because they've already picked up the two biggest wins that they've needed with West and East. So they just need to handle business against some of the other schools in the conference, and they should be able to win it. I don't know. Do you have anything to add for this?
No, you've nailed it. Cool. This is your comfort zone, right?
Yeah. GMC is what I know. So then moving on to the ECC, we still got the two kings of the ECC, Anderson and Winton Woods. I mean, Winton Woods, I don't know when the last time I need to look at this, when the last time they've allowed a point is. So yeah, right now they're on a 2-week shutout streak, which is pretty impressive in conference play. Anderson So
That
both
seems
teams are
the best.
5-0 and 4-0 in conference. So
That point differential is just, it keeps getting more and more crazy.
I think it's just going to keep getting more and more ridiculous as the year goes on. I don't really envision, and I mean, it's the Anderson Witten Woods game. We've been talking about it for a few weeks
At
now.
this rate, me and you need to be there together.
Yeah, I know. We need to watch it together because we've been talking about it for a while now. But I mean, both of those teams are good, but we'll show the rest of the conference some love here. West Claremont picking up a nice win, putting up 49 points against Milford, and then Lebanon getting a win over Little Miami 25-7. And then Loveland 23-7 over Turpin. So some good wins for all of those schools. And then, you just got 52-0 for Winton Woods and 41-0 for Anderson against Kings. And Kings is a solid school. I watched the Kings Loveland game, and Kings won that game against Loveland. So Kings, I definitely think, is kind of in that next tier in this conference. It's just Anderson and Winton Woods are on another level. So, and then we're going to go to the Miami Valley League, which Daniel was talking about earlier. So you said Tippecanoe plays Xenia this week?
No, they play Butler. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Tippecanoe plays Butler. Okay. So yeah, huge bounce back week for Butler here. If they can get a win against Tippecanoe, they'll be kind of right back in it, tied at 4-1 in the conference. So we'll have to pay attention to that and see if Butler picks up a win. And then, Xenia is definitely, their point differential is crazy too. 188-30 in league play, 214-37 and overall. So
wow.
They're definitely having a great year. And then to wrap it up, if my mouse figures it out. Okay, there we go. So then we're going to the G Walk. So Springboro 2-0, Springfield 2-0. So the Springs are having a good
Spring
start
battle.
to conference play. Spring battles. It's camp. So, but Springfield winning 17-3 over Centerville. Fairmont, like we were talking, and Wayne struggling this year, 43-22. Fairmont beating Wayne, and then Beaver Creek picking up the win, 19-10 over Miamisburg, and Springboro 28, Northmont 13. So,
I won't go back to my normal comment about Wayne because we've covered it enough, but it is still crazy that it's just, I feel like they were always good. And it's the same thing with Coleraine, right? You always felt like those schools were thorns in the side, and now they're both
you go to college for 4 or 5 years, and then you come back and everything's different.
It's a little bit different. So that does it for the standings, and always thank you to Jacob for going through all those. It's a lot of work, and I don't think I could keep up with all that information. I will, before we sign off tonight, I do want to bring up one more game, and I don't have anything for the screen on it, but I just wanted to bring it up just because it's so crazy, and we've already talked about it briefly between us, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Batavia beat Bethel Tate 83-0. 83. I don't know. I am not speaking ill will on Bethel Tate whatsoever. Stuff happens, right? Games, you have bad games, but 83 is crazy. I would not.
We were talking about that, dude. 83 is.
Think about it this way: you're literally 2 touchdowns and a field goal from scoring triple digits.
Usually you'll see 50s, maybe 60s. Last week I thought that 70-3 was crazy. And then this week it's just 83-0. And my question is, I don't know. Okay, you took my screen.
Oh, hold on. Let me add it back. Hold on. Yep, here we go. Hold on. I got you.
No. I just instead stopped sharing on my screen. I thought I forgot.
I was like, if you want to pull up the box score,
we
can.
No, but 83-0. It's just I don't know. running clock is a thing. So I
Yeah,
just don't know how you're able to consistently keep putting points up on the board like that
right.
to get to 83, because I just feel like the running clock ends up beating you in the end, you know?
Yeah, so I'll admit, I went to Immaculate Heart of Mary, which is a grade school in Cincinnati in Anderson Township. And when we played varsity, 7th and 8th grade, we were terrible. And there we didn't win a single game in 2 years. We were bad. But there was one game, and I think it was against St. Nicholas when I was in 7th grade. We were down like 56-0 at halftime. So we could have beaten the 83-0 mark, but I think the game got called at halftime.
Yeah, probably for the best.
Yeah, probably for the best. So it's just that I just wanted to put that out there just because I thought it was funny. But yeah, 83-0. I hope Bethel Tate can find a way to bounce back this coming week. I
Yeah,
don't know who they
definitely.
play, but hey, I mean, you just kind of take it week by week, right? You have a week like that, yeah, it's really not good. It doesn't look good, but the end of the day, you're still a team. It's still a team effort, and you got to go back out there and have a good week, whether it's a win or a loss. And that would be what my message to them, and then my message to Batavia is to keep rolling. That's what a win to build momentum off of. Especially at this point in the season, we're about halfway through, right? And if you can just take that and keep building towards the end of the year, and then hit your stride, you can say, "Oh, 83-0, they hit their stride, they've peaked." But you never know, right? I mean, you could take that offensive momentum into the playoffs and do something with it. And for a school like Batavia, I'm kind of from that area, or at least close. That's a school that kind of gets overlooked, especially in the football world. And for them to have that is quite impressive. So before we sign off and go watch the Bengals play, is there anything else you want to add, Jacob?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm ready to hopefully
All
watch
right. Yeah, we're going to go watch the Bengals. It could go one of two ways for me. It could be a really great night or a really poor night.
I'm gonna try to be on the optimistic side instead of the pessimist.
I mean, after being a Bengals fan our whole lives, the optimistic side of me is typically dead.
Yeah, you just got to try to be an eternal optimist.
Fair enough.
It's
You're a better man than I am, Jacob.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
we hope
everybody. Yeah, you can go first. You'll go first.
Right. I'm sorry. We're talking over each other now. We're both talking about the Bengals getting too giddy. I hope everybody enjoyed the first live iteration of this show. Going forward, it is going to be live every Monday night, 7:00, same time. And man, see, this is a great way. This is how you know we're live, people. My girlfriend's talking to somebody on the phone, and it just distracted the heck out of me. Literally last 2 minutes of this podcast, this live stream, and I get distracted. But anywho, we hope everybody enjoys their Monday night and enjoys the Bengals game, and we will see you next week.
Yep. Everybody have a good night. So,
all right.
Huda.
See you, everybody.